Bożena Iwanowski is here representing the Polish community, and from the Ukrainian community we have with us today Bohuslav Kohut, President of the Association of Ukrainians in Victoria, and board member Vanya Vasil, Taras Galas, the Cultural Director of the Australian Federation of Ukrainian Organisations, and the Ukrainian Combined Choir today, led by Volodymyr Holovko. Today, we remember the thousands of Baltic citizens who in 1941 were forcibly removed from their homes and deported to Siberia. It was part of the Soviet Union's policy, specifically designed to undermine the cultural and societal basis of the three Baltic states. However, today we also honour and empathise with the people of Ukraine who are locked in a life and death struggle for the future survival of their country. The people of Ukraine are on the front line of a war that will define the commitment of European and other Western countries to stand up to Russian expansionism. If Putin is not stopped, the Baltic states will again be exposed. If Europe and the West are unwilling or unable to defeat Russia in Ukraine, will NATO be similarly impotent if the Baltic states were threatened? We are very pleased, therefore, to have our friends with us today from the Polish and Ukrainian communities in Australia. Through the misfortune of the current war, we have the opportunity to work together. And one way of pledging our support is financial. Every dollar you donated on entry will be donated to the Ukraine Crisis Appeal. Before we light the remaining candle, I would like to briefly tell you the story of this egg. It was painted by a young Ukrainian friend who studied in Sydney and is now teaching at Adelaide University. Her parents and other close family members are in Lviv. Over Easter, she decorated 6 eggs in traditional Ukrainian designs. She then auctioned them at a private gathering of friends to raise money to assist in the struggle at home. Before each egg was auctioned, Marder told the story of the egg's design. This is what she said about this egg. Kalina, in English viburnum, is one of the most vivid symbols of Ukraine. You would hear songs and poetry about it. You would see in every traditional decoration, from pottery to embroidery to kitchen walls. Kalina is a timeless symbol of connectedness of all Ukrainians across time and space, across generations. It speaks to the continuity of Ukrainian traditions passed from parents to children for centuries. This pisanka adopts a very old pattern, the Tree of Life, to modern reality. You might have heard the song Oi Luzi Chevorna Kalina, recently released by Pink Floyd, together with Ukrainian Andriy Khlyvnyuk, in support of Ukraine. In English, the song goes, Hey, hey, rise up, and it is the hymn to Ukrainian free spirit. Marder then sang the song. We will all hear this song later, sung by the Ukrainian choir. Let us now light a candle for Ukraine. I invite Slavko Kohut to do it with the matches held on you. Let us hope that the flame continues to burn brightly in the hearts of all Ukrainians as they continue their struggle against the aggressor. Let the light also continue to encourage all of Ukraine's neighbours to support its fight for freedom. Perhaps if we can stand for a moment of silence where we contemplate the sufferance imposed on our peoples by the Russian oppressors.
On the 28th to the 30th of June, we expect a decision on the establishment of a permanent defence position in the Baltic states, which has become crucial in the current situation. A more robust presence of NATO allied forces in each of the Baltic states will be called for. Ladies and gentlemen, today the Baltic states continue to thrive and develop as independent democratic republics, proud of our heritage, folklore and language. But we must never forget the unabashed Soviet colonization of our countries and the many thousands of deportees who perished during the Soviet reign of terror. We thank God that in 2022, Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania are independent nation states. At this commemoration, we also pray for the people of Ukraine, and we applaud them in their brave fight against the invading forces of Russia. We also commend the President of Ukraine for his leadership and continued mobilisation of support from the free world. Thank you for your attention.
Laino The displaced were provided with employment without any consideration for their occupation before exile. Many of the exiled Estonians were included in the list of people to be relocated because of denunciations. Exile orders were approved on the basis of only 4 signatures, often those of close friends, neighbours or fellow villagers. A few litres of home-brewed vodka, a sack of flour, a piece of smoked fat given to another person could provide sufficient reason to suspect the farmer of links with the nationalists. All Estonians wanted at the start was to keep their homeland free from outside domination, to have the right to fight against occupants, whatever uniform they have. During the war in Estonia, my own father, to avoid being captured or killed, cleverly impersonated himself as being a patient in a mental asylum until it was safe for him to flee from the occupiers. Along with my mother, he eventually made it to Australia in 1949. In the aftermath of the Second World War, Estonia lost approximately 17% of its population. From 1940 to 53, more than 200,000 people were estimated to be deported from the Baltics. In addition, at least 75,000 were sent to Gulag. 10% of the entire adult Baltic population was deported.
Being the special envoy for energy security, that's very relevant here at the moment, ambassador at large for external economic relations, we have a problem with China, and director of the NATO Foreign Ministers Summit in Lithuania. And last year we were fortunate enough that he was appointed ambassador to Australia. Jānis has a very charming wife, Nida, and I'd like to just tell you a little bit about her. She is not just beautiful and charming, she's also a lawyer, a blogger, a photographer, and a foodie. She has published 2 award-winning cookbooks which have sold out. We have a real power couple amongst our midst. The Lithuanian community in Australia is very pleased that we have an embassy at last and we have such an experienced ambassador. Please welcome His Excellency Darius Degutis.
I know it's a day of mourning, day of hope. I hope so. But when I say the day of mourning, the day of hope, I should also mention that all our history has been of the deep tragic experiences, but also of a wonderful hope for the future.
I was born in Vilnius in 1963. I spent almost all my half-life in the Soviet system, in the Soviet occupation. But we never believed them. We knew that they were telling lies to all of us. They were telling, and we knew that. They were telling that we will live in the bright communist future. Nobody believed that. They were threatening to us. If you would celebrate Christmas, if you would celebrate Easter, you or your parents would be fired or would be imprisoned. 2,000 people in Russia. He spoke on the Presidium. Gorbachev sat behind him. He talked for 5 minutes. And he told to everyone, we, Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia will be free. Because that is written in the so-called Soviet Constitution. If you want to be independent, you are most welcome to be independent. He did that when Gorbachev was seated 2 meters behind him. Could any one of us do it? We didn't know if he would return to Vilnius. Nobody knew about that. I thought he will be dying in the prison in Moscow or sending to Vorkuta camp, as my uncle was sent 70 years ago, 60s, 50 years ago. He came back. Latvia and Estonia joined. We cut away the Soviet monster's head. Freedom and independence. They share their blood for you, for Australians, for New Zealanders, for Lithuanians, Latvians, Estonians, all the other normal nations in the world. They share, but they need to fight. We need to send weapons to them. I know that there are some countries who are very good countries, our friends. They're not sending weapons to them. Let's hope that we'll be sticking together with Ukrainians to fight this huge monster. Let's hope that we'll be cutting away all monsters' heads. That is very, very important. You know, what happened in Bucha, what happened in Irpin, other villages, other towns in Ukraine, that's exactly what happened in 1944, 1945, 1946. They did, 70 years ago, they did the same to all of us. They raped, they tortured, they killed, and they threw bodies in the squares of villages, of towns.
our Ukrainian friends. And as first, I would like to invite Bomislav Kohut to address you with his helper, Vanya.
You'll have to excuse me, I've just had my cataracts done and I don't know how to wear these new glasses. So. Mr. Ambassador, Honorary Consuls, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting the Ukrainian community here today to your 81st commemoration of the mass deportation, where, as you've already heard, in 1941, some 200,000 of your people were deported, forcibly deported. Mr. Ambassador, I thank you for your kind words. Everything you said, absolutely true. Ukrainians are fighting the war, not just for themselves. Peace, brotherhood, working together, respecting one another, that's all we want. Unfortunately, the Russians are an aggressive, imperialistic people. And since the war broke out, everyone is blaming Putin. And yes, we've used those words as well. But if you look at our recent history, just over the last 100 years, how many acts of genocide have occurred? The mass deportations of the Baltic people, Tatars from Krim, Ukrainians from various parts of Ukraine, what they've done in Mariupol, the children that they've taken. Another lady, Elena, I was walking with her, I forget where we were actually going, and she got a phone call from her neighbour in Ukraine. The neighbour called to say, Elena, your house, car, property, gone, destroyed. She's here with her 5-year-old daughter. Her husband's back home fighting. They're just two typical, I'm sorry. It's been a long 3 months. These are typical examples of what we're facing every day. And a lot of Ukrainian community here are trying to help as much as they can for the DPs. I could speak for hours on the issues and the things that we're facing. A lot has already been said by the ambassador. We have to support the fight in Ukraine, and I'm glad to see Mr. Johnson was there the other day, providing training to military weapons, providing military weapons themselves, which he says will potentially change the war. Let's hope it does.
Before we welcome our Ukrainian choristers to the stage, we have another Ukrainian representative who would like to speak to you. You will have seen brochures on your seats. We have with us today Taras Galas, the Cultural Director of the Federal Ukrainian Organisation, who would like to share with you his plans for a gala event next month at the Palais Theatre, a fundraiser for Ukraine. Please, Taras.
I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate your community for coming together today to present this fundraising concert in the support of the conflict in Ukraine. I would like to invite you all to come and support our charity gala concert for Ukraine at the Palais Theatre at St Kilda on Sunday, 17th of July at 2:30 p.m. We were very lucky that I applied for a grant through the Port Phillip Bay, and they were able to cover the $16,500 for the hire of the Palais Theatre. So let's give a big round of applause for that. Obviously there's other costs involved, but we are putting on this event so that we can raise as much money as we can for Ukraine. We are honoured to have in support of us our Eastern European brothers and sisters of Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia and the Polish communities to be part of this concert to perform our traditional folk, dance, music, song and choral performances. Ticket sales will be available through Ticketmaster from Tuesday the 21st of June. All proceeds will be donated to the Ukraine Crisis Appeal. Thank you again for being here in solidarity and in support for Ukraine. Slava Ukraini.
So sorry that I'm not allowed to talk at this particular moment, but you know, it's very, very important what you have said about this great performance in St. Kilda's Palace. You know, it's important that we join. It's important that other countries, Slovaks, Czechs, Romanians, Bulgarians, Hungarians, despite the factor of their Prime Minister Orban, talk about community. It's important that we join because we, all of us, they will go to all of the countries.